is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
It's 6 after on this Monday. 6 after on this Monday on the Steve Gruber Show. Greatly appreciate your support. We'll have 2 new stations to announce to you before the end of the month here. So our reach is expanding. Thanks to you, the listeners. So I thank you for all your support. I greatly appreciate it. Could not do it without you. This hour brought to you in part by Consumers Mutual Insurance. Couldn't do it without our sponsors either. Consumers Mutual Insurance, a different kind of insurance company. It's a co-op. In fact, tomorrow on the program, we'll be talking to the Chief Operating Officer for Consumers Mutual to explain what a co-op is, how it's different, and how things work. He'll be coming up on the program here very soon. All right, here's some good news for you. Here's some good news. The federal tax collection has hit an all-time record high for fiscal year 2015, which is kind of stunning if you think about it, because we continue to slide deeper into debt. We've gone from 17 to 18 to 19 trillion dollars. I mean, this president had, I think it was we were at $9 trillion, $9 trillion or 8 or 9 when he took office. He's doubled our debt and in trillions of dollars. And our total intake into the federal government, $3.2 trillion in tax revenue for the 2015 fiscal year, which is pretty incredible. The largest portion of the tax collection comes from individual income tax returns like yours and mine. It amounts to $1.54 trillion. Payroll taxes for Social Security and so forth. Social insurance and retirement receipts, another $1.01 trillion. Corporate taxes brought in $345 billion. So we're setting all-time records for the amount of taxes we're collecting, and yet we slide deeper into debt. And it's probably in part because of the economic understanding of the average American. The average American is economically illiterate. I don't know enough about economics. I could learn a whole lot more, but I don't believe I'm economically illiterate like most Americans are economically, financially illiterate. Think about it. It's true. So let me give you, here's a little something for you. It's a little something I found from a guy by the name of Grant Phillips online, and I want to share with you. Grant Phillips writes the following. Senator Bernie Sanders recently published an op-ed piece in the Huffington Post where he makes numerous claims about the economy. In typical leftist fashion, his narratives are either grossly misrepresented or, well, outright lies, and he doesn't include a single citation for any of his wild claims. From stagnant middle class and income inequality to child poverty and evil corporations, his analysis employs one-step thinking and overgeneralization to draw incomplete, inaccurate, and frankly incompetent conclusions. Income inequality is one of today's most popular economic myths, derived from the misconception that wealth and income are fixed pies. Sanders makes the usual claim of the 1% having a disproportionate amount of both. Economic inequality is largely overstated through aggregate statistics, nor is there a connection between inequality levels and overall economic well-being. That's an extremely important note right there. Income inequality and economic well-being have no correlation. In a paper for Columbia University, economists Emmanuel Saez and Wojciech Kopczyk analyzed wealth shares from 1916 through the year 2000 using more inclusive and exact definitions of income and wealth. They found that there has been a sharp reduction in wealth concentration throughout the 20th century. Think about that. The concentration of wealth has been spread out. should say. Around the 1920s, the top 1% held about 40% of wealth, but that has remained at about 20% for the last few decades, and now it is at about 18%, which is a historic low. It's a historic low for wealth concentration in America. In a 2013 paper, economists Heggs and Simon, in an attractive standard for calculating wealth and income because of its inclusive definition, by employing Heggs-Simon, observed growth of income inequality within tax brackets is dramatically reduced. Based on the inclusive metric, top income shares have not significantly increased in the last 20 years, and most income growth in America has been in the bottom 80% of earners. Also, by incorporating accrued capital gains and not just IRS realized capital gains, economic inequality quickly dissipates. It becomes diluted. But leftists, such as Sanders, often cite the Gini coefficient, which is a measure of the country's inequality. The United States ranks next to African countries, while countries like Norway, openly socialist countries, rank next to Afghanistan. You see, the Gini coefficient might measure inequality to a degree, but if anything, it proves that income inequality is not associated with economic well-being. Bernie Sanders must not care to read any further because Bernie Sanders is being romanticized in America, embraced in America, applauded in America, but he bases his claims off incomplete data by adjusting the CPI for inflation, which overstates it and then excludes fringe benefits, which, by the way, fringe benefits in America, insurance and dental plans and everything else, have more than doubled since the 1970s. And why would you bring that up when you're pandering to a base that, you want them to believe something different? Income inequality expected to follow by claims of a shrinking middle class. In reality, the middle class has shrunk upwards. In fact, more people are considered to be in the upper class today than they were in 1967. 43% of families are considered to have middle-class incomes. 38% of families in America are considered to have a more upper-class income. It's also worth mentioning that lower incomes declined from 22.8% to just 17% of that same time period. And here it is. Time and time and time again, you can find proof. Let's find some proof rooted right here in Michigan. A recent study published by Harvard measures the long-run trend of economic mobility over the last 20 years, which has been difficult to accomplish due to data constraints. Michigan State University economist Gary Solon said the Harvard study is the most comprehensive and in-depth research on the subject. According to their findings, percentile rank-based measures of an intergenerational mobility have remained extremely stable. They even address income inequality and note that the top 1% of income shares are not strongly associated with mobility. Measures of social mobility have remained stable in the second half of the 20th century. The point being is, we have nicer cars than we had when we grew up, nicer homes than when I grew up, more color television sets, more computers, more smartphones, more entertainment-based pieces of our lives every day. That's called disposable income, boys and girls, and we have a lot more of it than we ever have. 14 after the hour.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
What she wanted to be. She said, baby, can't you see? I want to be famous, a star of the screen.
When it comes to preventable deaths in America each year, motor vehicle crashes are among the top preventable deaths. And when it comes to young people, well, unfortunately, car crashes are still the number one killer of teens, with nearly 1,700 teenage traffic deaths reported in 2013. But there is a new program on the horizon trying to change that statistic and improve that statistic and hopefully keep more young people alive past their 21st birthday. Here to talk more about it is Stephanie Dunham, the coordinator with Ford Motor Company. Stephanie, welcome to the program.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. And, okay, so as I look through the Michigan teen driving statistics, 175 teenagers and young people killed in motor vehicle crashes for 2013 and 14. You know, it's we all see these things happen. We see it, you know, when the high school football star dies or the girls are killed on a Friday night. That, you know, we've all seen these stories, gut-wrenching stories. And I guess my question to you is, what can we do about it?
Well, Ford Driving Skills for Life is Ford's Advanced Teen Safe Driving Program. It's a free program that we put on. We have both online training and free behind-the-wheel training. And we actually bring in professional instructors with racing background, and they understand car control and car feel. And they're here to give teens advanced skills because teens lack experience. They just haven't been out on the roads as long as we have. So we're getting them behind the wheel and giving them these advanced skills that can help save their life.
Yeah, driving skills for life. Yeah. To be honest with you, that'd probably be beneficial to a lot of drivers out there, not just teenagers, but we have to start somewhere. And I suppose it's best to start with those that are more vulnerable. Because like you said, experience, and there is no substitute for experience in this world, especially behind the wheel.
Correct. And as you mentioned earlier, people pile in, and it's the high school football star. Ford Driving Skills for Life and our national partner, the Governor's Highway Safety Association, is actually releasing a report this week that talks about teen influencers, adult teen influencers, like a coach, like a doctor. The plateau, we've kind of plateaued. When we started this program in 2003, teen traffic fatalities across the United States were about 10,000. And now we're at 4, but we've plateaued. The graduated driver's licensing, everybody's kind of a little bit fatigued. So we're looking at other adult influencers who touch students on a daily basis, like your coach. You might spend 3 hours a day with your coach after school. So we're trying to reach out to these people and have them positively influence teens and their driving behaviors.
So let me I want to go back and I want to touch on that, Stephanie. We're with Stephanie Dunham from Ford Motor Company here talking about the Driving Skills for Life program from Ford and others trying to reduce the number of highway fatalities involving young people in this country. In 2003, you just said 10,000 teenagers died in this country. And you're right about graduated driver's licenses and other training measures being taken to make sure that young drivers have more time behind the wheel and therefore are safer. From 10,000, where are we now as far as fatalities?
Nationally, we're at 4,000, and that's 15 to 20-year-olds.
So we've cut the fatality rate by 60% in 12 years is what you're saying.
Correct. And preliminary data in 2015 is actually showing a small uptick. So we want to definitely address that and make sure that we're still heading down towards zero deaths.
I mean, that's incredible. What do you? I mean, not just. Is it just about graduated licensing? Is it about a crackdown? I mean, obviously, drunk driving and other impaired driving issues have been dealt with harshly in every state in the union. Concerns about distracted driving and texting while driving have become the focus of law enforcement and other stiff penalties. Are these all contributing factors?
They are. We have both distracted and impaired driving, and our program touches on that as well. And what people might not realize, and it's incorporated in graduated driver's licensing, is additional passengers can be more distracting than your phone. If you know that crazy friend and you're like, hey, they might not be the best asset in my car, you want to have your driver be as safe as possible. And that might be reducing the passengers in the vehicle to make sure that they are 2 hands on the wheel, 2 eyes on the road, and focused on the task at hand.
Absolutely. I have to admit I don't drive with 2 hands on the wheel even to this day, but I'm reasonably safe. So give me an idea about this Driving Skills for Life. What are the techniques and how do people, let's say there's parents listening today say, I'd like my kid who's 16 or 17 for whatever reason. Maybe they're a little bit of a risk taker. Maybe they don't have a lot of experience and they're timid behind the wheel, because timid behind the wheel is no good either. You've got to have confidence. Defensive driving is what they always used to teach us. You don't hear that term very much anymore, but defensive driving was the way to stay alive. And always, just because there's a stop sign and the car's coming up to the right doesn't mean that person sees the stop sign. Pay attention. They may or may not stop. You need to be aware behind the wheel. But what kind of skills are out there, and how do people find out more and get their kids involved?
They can go to our website, drivingskillsforlife.com. And we have an online training course that your teens can go in today. It takes about 2 hours. It can be stopped and started at any time. And we actually filmed our hands-on training. So you're learning from the instructors that we have at our hands-on training. So that's the first resource, drivingskillsforlife.com. And then your school can actually participate. We work with the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning, and this is our 5th year, and we do peer-to-peer programming in schools. And this is the first year that we're opening it up statewide. So your school can go to our website, drivingskillsforlife.com, and get more information on the Strive for a Safer Drive program. And your school can receive up to $1,000 grant to eliminate teen driving fatalities by creating a peer-to-peer program in your school. And all these schools have a chance of going to our hands-on training.
No, well, that's pretty fascinating, getting it. I mean, obviously you can't reach every school, but reach as many as you can and passes from person to person. Again, where do people start? We've got about 20 seconds. Where do people start today if they want to find out more? Where do they go right now?
Go to drivingskillsforlife.com.
There you go, Stephanie. Well done, and way to pinch hit in here today. Stephanie Dunham from Ford Motor Company. Great job. Greatly appreciate your time, and I certainly hope this has great success.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
There you have it. Stephanie Dunham, everybody, Ford Motor Company. Driving skills for life. Let's be honest. The more experience, the better. 25 after on this Monday. Welcome to it. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
I'll never be your beast of burden. My back is broad, but it's a hurt.
All right. 33 after the hour on this Monday. A big win for the Michigan State Spartans on Saturday. On the last play of the game on a botched punt attempt by the University of Michigan results in a fumble return for a touchdown. Many Michigan fans left convulsing. One of those, Michael Daugherty, who I'm told is recovering now and is in stable condition following a gut-wrenching loss to the Michigan State Spartans. Michael Daugherty, welcome back to the program.
Man, you had to just rip those IV tubes right on my arm, didn't you?
If anybody that listens to this program knows that I support both schools, but I lean a little bit to the blue. So,
I went to the blue, but I live in Georgia, and one of the great things about living in Georgia is when stuff like that happens, the rest of the community is not, screaming in the streets. So I was really glad I was in Atlanta on Saturday. I hit that remote so fast. It was just,
Lord. Yeah, it was a shocking ending, and I'm sorry. Are you better now? Have you eaten? Have you taken nourishment?
I'm kind of better. I'm glad we have a bye this week. It's so hard. I mean, I'm a grown man who acts like a 2-year-old when Michigan football's on. So. I mean, it's a terrible thing. It's just, it's probably going to do me in one day.
At some point, you'll collapse in front of the TV. Anyhow, well. Big win for the Spartans, and we'll tip their hat that way. But, when you talk about sports and fantasy sports and so forth, DraftKings and FanDuel and all of these things, one of them, people using illegal information to, get money from the other. But wouldn't you know, with all that money flying around, that the federal government comes sniffing around? I mean, I'm shocked to learn this, Michael, but apparently the federal government decided, if there's tens of millions of dollars, changing hands every day, we should probably be in there seeing who's picking what and what's going on.
Well, it's the golden goose all over again, and we'll see what the FBI. I mean, look, when you've got this type of gaming stuff, and there's tons of money, and lots of people are losing, and very few are winning, and the ones who are winning a ton, that always made them crazy as it was. But once you find this, employee made $350,000, and oops, there was no connection. Here they come. I'm not nearly afraid of the FBI as I am the rest of the regulators, because the FBI actually are the more professional of the crowd. It's when you have Harry Reid getting on the Senate floor and throwing a temper tantrum, and then Nevada not letting him to do it like days later. Gosh, I don't know what that could be about, because Harry usually is so objective and fair.
More like objectionable, yeah.
No rush to justice from that guy, or self-interest. No.
Yeah, no. He's not a self-promoter at all. No,
not at all.
Very
especially from Nevada, the land of fairness.
Even-keeled individual, yeah. I didn't even know Mormons gambled. I thought it was against the religion, but apparently he's all right with it.
Well, everyone's got their price, and he's actually a Moor. He's not a Mormon. He's just a Moor.
So that's where it ends from. Fair enough. All right. So where does this go? I mean, seriously. I mean, listen. I think it was DraftKings spent $250 million to advertise on ESPN to be the exclusive, fantasy deal. And there was this debate, well, it's not really gambling because they're not real teams. Let me ask you, Michael, is it gambling?
Well, it's being treated like gambling by the vast majority of people that play the game, because the vast majority of people that play the game don't put a ton of money in and don't put a ton of time in, and the people that win put in lots of hours of research, and so it's being treated by gambling, whether you call it gambling or not, by the vast majority of people. It's like a game. It's like an entertainment, and they lose. That's who's funneling the huge profits and the big wins by the few. So I think it's being treated like gambling, but the legal clarification right now is that it's not, and that's what everyone's trying to crack. I think the FBI just wants to see if there's internal cheating going on, and see what they're going to do about that. But I think everyone, if you told the people that actually played every day it's not gambling, they'd go, it isn't.
They'd be like, yeah, come on. Of course it's gambling. I mean, let's not kid. It's gambling. It is what it is, and that whatever. It's okay. Just be honest about what it is, and if that's what it is, then how are we going to address it? And if it needs to be regulated, which I don't frankly care if people gamble. I think it's a tax on the mathematically impaired, and if the people that are mathematically impaired want to pay an idiot tax, and knock yourselves out.
Well, this is the problems that the internet creates again with putting up fences and borders and regulating people and issues. I mean, this is why the internet's such a difficult thing to regulate anyway when there's crime, because the lawyers and the governments immediately go, well, where did it happen? It happened here, it happened there, it happened up in the air. Who's got jurisdiction? And if you don't have jurisdiction, you can't even get off the spot. And so it's really easy to get defrauded, and that's why we have all this cybercrime going on. So it's, this whole thing has blown the roof because of the internet, and it's just another industry that's getting taken out the knees because of really their loss of control. The bottleneck is getting shattered, and so now that's why Nevada hates it. That's why they don't like it not considered a game. Instead, it's considered a game of skill. And a game of skill is not considered gambling, and so they can't get their hands around. But they're probably siphoning gambling dollars away from your standard casinos and things. That's welcome to the wonderful world of technology, folks.
Well, yeah.
Flipping these big boys upside down.
Well, it just seems to me that they will do everything they can to get their fingers away. The fact of the matter is, it's like, and Harry Reid's a good example. I mean, there's a Pavlovian effect. If there's that much money around, there are. Physiological changes in politicians when there's big pots of money. I mean, their palms sweat. They become tingly, and they're attracted to it. But there's a few $1 billion they can't help
that
themselves.
Doesn't change, but that can never change. But no, you're exactly right, and there's powerful people behind those people to say, crack this. This is costing us a fortune, and they want to get rid of a competitor via regulation, and that's a dangerous thing. So it's are they taking care of their information? Is there crime involved? That doesn't mean you have to turn the sport upside down. You just have to go in and take out the tumor. But those regulators, some of these who want to go in and then just flip the entire thing, and they take that as an opportunity. So we have to have the dust die down a little bit here. But this is no small industry now. There's big bucks, so there'll be big-time lawyers, and it's survival stakes. So this is going to kind of die down a little bit, and then they'll have a large, expensive fight, and we'll know in about 5 years.
Yeah, I guess we will find out. And, the big regulation coming this week, not to shift gears, but just a little bit, the big regulations coming down this week are going to have to do with drones. You have to register your drone now, all these, which I guess, with 10 billion of those things flying around, they need to know where they're coming from, I suppose. But that's the next big wave of regulation coming from the FAA, just for your pleasure.
And it's a good thing, though, because I'm a pilot, and let me tell you something, I don't like looking for little specks that don't know to fly away when I'm on landing. And people don't understand that you can be 6 miles away from an airport and still in their airspace if you're up, 5,000, 6,000 feet, even 3,000 feet, depending on where you're at. So it depends on the regulation, but, I mean, these people are crazy, and they're scary, and I don't want them controlling a little thing that can get my propeller.
Fair point. We should talk about that next time. Michael Daugherty, everybody, on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Very superstitious. Writings on the wall. Very superstitious.
It is 45 after the hour on this Monday. What does it take to win the White House? Well, one thing it takes, a lot of hard work. Shoe leather, as they say. You don't get there by holding rallies and waving. You actually have to get out there and beat the streets a lot of times. Note to Donald Trump. The speeches are nice and the money's great, but you actually have to get out there and press the flesh, as they say. A veteran of that hard work effort, Saul Anuzis, former chair of the Michigan Republican Party and former National Committee chair, member, is here with us this morning. Saul, welcome back to the program.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
So you're out there beating the streets, as they say, for Senator Ted Cruz, correct?
That's right.
And so basically, it must be like an oversized ping pong match. New Hampshire, Iowa, New Hampshire, and back and forth and back and forth. There's a lot of time in those two states right now, for sure.
Yeah, and you're kind of trying to obviously spread the map a little bit and compete as many places as you can. It's really a unique situation to have 15 candidates running. So, you've got to, look at opportunities just about anywhere you can. I'm actually flying to Nevada today, and as you said, I've spent a lot of time in New Hampshire, where we've had some pretty unique opportunities, and he's done extremely well with kind of the liberty-minded voters, and we just had the 603 Alliance do a big meeting in New Hampshire, which is a group of all the conservative kind of groups who are quote-unquote trying to stop Bush in the primary, and they voted almost 73% in favor of Cruz, so that was a real big victory this weekend. So there's lots of opportunities, and you have to, whether it's New Hampshire and Iowa, the ones we all hear about, but we're in Idaho and California and New Mexico and everywhere else in between, because you've got to still come up with a majority of the delegates get nominated, and find 8 states will actually make that nomination for you. So it's a huge task that a lot of people don't understand or even grasp with respect to how much footwork there's going to be done here.
Yeah, it takes a lot. The one thing that your candidate has, he has bedrock support. I mean, the folks that support Ted Cruz, I mean, they're there. They're solid. They're true believers. And the other thing he has is big money. I mean, let's be honest. The donations, the supporters, the financial backing is also solid. So he's in good shape for a while, because you look at the field and you look at people like Lindsey Graham and so forth. They have no shot at doing anything. They might hang around, but they don't have any money. But there's about 4 or 5 candidates that have the money. Obviously, Donald Trump has money. Jeb Bush has money. Marco Rubio's doing all right. John Kasich, even though he's still polling soft in many areas, has the money and the stay power because he's got good backing in New Hampshire, as you've run into. So there's some candidates, but other ones are going to have to start peeling away. They can't all stay in the race. At some point, it becomes a financial reality that, I'm sorry, it's not going to work for you. Well,
it is, and there's many of the candidates have a burn rate that is unbelievable. Rand Paul, as an example, spent 94% of everything he raised this last quarter. You can't do that and build a war chest for media and the ground game in many of these different states if you're not able to bank some of your money. So it's a tough battle for folks. And right now, I believe most people think that anybody's got a shot, so they're trying to stay as long as they can. But the political realities are starting to kind of dig themselves in here, where you're looking at, who can actually win and compete in New Hampshire, who can actually win and compete in Iowa, what's going to happen in South Carolina. Then you've got the SEC primary coming through the South. I mean, we went through 7 different states with Ted Cruz, and I think the key is what you're saying, is that we have very deep support that is slowly growing. And this early in the process, you're really looking for trends versus polling numbers. Polls will jump up and down, and some people are going to, peak out early and then fade away, where Cruz has kind of just built a steady base, kind of the tortoise and the hare scenario, keeps growing, has gotten in, just broke double digits last week, but literally we've got thousands of supporters. This last weekend here in Michigan, Wendy Day, who's our state director, put together a whole team of Cruz people from, multiple counties and districts, sat down and came up with a, door-to-door plan and volunteer activities and what we're going to do, and we're even a late state. So you can just imagine if you've got something like that taking place here in Michigan, what else can be happening around the country in some of the earlier states.
So what handicapping it now, obviously you're all in for Ted Cruz. At what point do things begin to shake? I mean, obviously, as talked about in March in Michigan, we have our primary and so forth. But the field, it's got to change before the end of this year. I mean, it's got to change before Thanksgiving, really, again. Doesn't have to whittle down some. I mean, we've seen some governors go already. I was surprised when Scott Walker dropped, but he did.
I was surprised, too.
But
I think it does. Here's the situation. I believe you're going to have kind of what would be more the establishment candidate. And it's going to be either, today we're looking at, basically Bush, Rubio, Christie, Kasich, I guess, would be kind of more the traditional Republican establishment candidate. One of those has to emerge and will ultimately emerge just because of the infrastructure of the way the party's built up and where the money comes from. And the big battle, obviously, right now is between Bush and Rubio because Florida is such an important state. Florida is also a huge donor state, and it would be very difficult for both of them to go to distance. So you've got kind of a mini primary going of which one of the two of them can knock each other out, and then from the others who ultimately emerges as the mainstream kind of establishment candidate. Then the question is, who's a conservative challenger? Who's going to be the person who actually gets the convention to be the alternative voice so that delegates actually have a choice? And that's really where Cruz is playing, Paul is playing, Trump is obviously leading today, Ben Carson is there. And so one of those candidates probably emerges as the true alternative. That's the likely scenario, to have, kind of the establishment and then one conservative. The one scenario that's unique this time that we really haven't had probably in 30 years is because there's 15 candidates and because of the new rules that require 8 states to nominate a candidate, there's a potential you could have 4 to 6 candidates going into the convention. Now, that's probably a 10 to 15% chance at best, but it is a real chance versus before never being an opportunity.
We'll have to keep an eye on it. We have to leave it right there, Saul.
Convention, which would make things very interesting.
Very interesting. That would make it good for my business, Saul, for
Absolutely.
sure. Hey, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Be with you. Take care.